Innes, appreciate your time. Let's start with the situation in Greater Brisbane. 3-day lockdown, possible extension, though it is due to end today. What sort of an impact will that have on the industry?
Well, Danica, today's the first day back for millions of workers all around the country, and some of them won't be going back to work. We've had state border closures, we've had lockdown of Brisbane, we've got people in quarantine. So it's a bit of a chaotic start to the year. It always was going to be challenging, but the Brisbane situation is concerning. We were supportive of the short, sharp lockdown because it's better than the alternative, which is a long, drawn-out Victorian-style lockdown. But the issue is that business will need clarity as quickly as possible around whether they can resume normal transmission tomorrow or this is going to drag on longer. And perhaps the worst thing of all is not knowing for business, and then it being taken into the days becoming more days and then becoming weeks. And the quicker business can get an answer to how long this will last, and hopefully it does end today, the better.
There's obviously a lot of uncertainty. Are you worried that this sets a precedent for future outbreaks in that state or the rest of the country, this short, sharp lockdown style of situation?
Well, there are lots of precedents out there now in different states, and this is the concerning bit for industry. You had Victoria, which seems to enjoy putting itself into prolonged lockdown. You've got South Australia, which shut down an entire state under unusual circumstances, but that was an extreme action as well. And now you've got Queensland, which has probably done, of the three, the right thing, which is a targeted lockdown aimed at a specific area. But that is now the precedent for Queensland, and that's what businesses in that state should expect in the time ahead. And we shouldn't think this is going to be the last case of this. This is probably just going to be the first, unfortunately, of many.
We've seen rolling border closures during the last 8 months, and still a number of borders are closed off to various states. What does business confidence look like?
Well, business is very unhappy, let's put it that way, Danica, about the prolonged border closures, the snap border closures, the fact that premiers and chief medical officers just decide to close borders at the drop of a hat. It impacts on business confidence in a significant way. It sends business the very clear signal that they're the poor cousins in all of this, and that they just have to tolerate whatever governments decide to do with very, very little warning. When you saw Victoria shutting its border to New South Wales at 3:30 in an afternoon, shutting it at midnight, and that gives business no confidence that there's any sort of long-term certainty here at all. And we would very much like the states to get together with the Commonwealth and come up with real proper protocols about how to do this. We did have arrangements and agreements for the early part of last year, and then that all fell apart. But the quicker business can get some certainty and some consistency, the better. That's the other problem here, Danica, is there is no consistency between the states on how they act here. So when you put all that together, it's not a great operating environment for business. And business say one of their big concerns going through last year was these border closures and the impact it had on the movement of goods, but also of people getting around trying to service equipment, trying to get to customers, all of those sort of things, which are crucial to keep the economy going.
Let's talk about JobKeeper. We spoke to the Treasurer here on First Edition a short time ago. He said that it's been a very successful program, but it does have an end date, and we know that end date is March. Would you like to see the federal government perhaps prolong that subsidy, given that there is so much uncertainty?
Well, Danica, it does have to end at some point. We can't continue to rely on JobKeeper. It's been a $90 billion odd program, and it's just not sustainable to keep it going in its current form. And we've seen through just the start of January, many businesses wind off JobKeeper because their circumstances have evolved. So the situation is changing all the time. What we would say is that there is going to be a need for ongoing government support for parts of the economy, whether that's sectors of the economy. You think obviously tourism is one now that is in dire straits and will require support going forward. but it may also need to be regionally focused support. If, for instance, the Northern Beaches lockdown had to go for longer, that impact would have been dramatic on businesses, not just in the Northern Beaches, but also in Sydney. So you could make a case for businesses there to apply for short-term support, either from the federal or the state government. We think they're the sort of measures that governments are going to have to look at. But the impact of removing JobKeeper is going to be stark, with the number of people still on it, the number of businesses still on it. And I think, end of March is going to be a difficult period, and then that period through until the end of May, end of June is going to be particularly difficult for the economy, given that support will and has to be withdrawn.
You mentioned earlier it'll be back to work for a number of CBD workers, particularly in Sydney today, but plans for Victoria's public workforce to return to the office have been delayed by another week. What does the impact of that look like? Another week of workers not returning to the CBD.
Well, I think what this demonstrates, Danica, is that businesses operating in an incredibly challenging environment, having to make very quick decisions and be very adaptable to keep themselves going and keep themselves operating. And I think that should be recognised here. And it varies from state to state as well. If you're a national business, it's a jigsaw trying to put all the pieces together. But the fact that we can't get any certainty around return to work and how that looks, how many people will be able to return to work, is deeply problematic for business, because it goes to the heart of planning and certainty, which is what business needs. All businesses have their COVID plans. They've operated through last year with COVID plans. But what we're probably going to see is, for the time being, a continuation in Victoria, at least, of sort of the work from home rule, and then that will obviously unwind, or hopefully unwind, as the year goes on. But business needs certainty, and sort of being told a day before a decision is implemented what the decision is just not good enough for business and its planning.
Yeah, hopefully some clarity soon. Willox, appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Danica. Take care. Bye-bye.